Split Fiction was one of the games I was so excited to play the most this year, and let me tell you, this game did not disappoint, and honestly, it had to be one of the best games I played this year so far. This game was amazing from start to finish, and I'm very excited to talk about it and what makes this game so great. Split Fiction is created by Hazelight, known to create some of the best co-op games of our modern times. I played through some of their games already, such as A Way Out and 2021 Game Awards winner It Takes Two, and they both brought me some of the best gaming experiences I have ever witnessed with a friend in a very long time, and I would argue nobody can create a better co-op experience than the Hazelight team. One of the best parts about Split Fiction is the friend pass, because only one person needs to buy the game and the friend of you choosing can play for free, or maybe you and your friend can split the money and play the game together. Also, this game is crossplay, so you and your friend can play together even if you guys are on different platforms. And speaking of friends, shout out to my friend Chris aka Critterin, because that's who I'm playing this game with in this video. But going into the game, the story begins with two writers. Mio, who writes stories about science fiction, and Zoe, who writes stories about fantasy. They both got invited to a company called Raider Publishing alongside 4 other nameless writers to get their stories published. They were told by Mr. Raider to get into the machine so they can all individually experience a simulation of their stories, which will all be recorded and published. But what Mr. Raider was keeping a secret was the real purpose of this machine, which was to steal their creative ideas. Mio was very cautious about going into the machine, so things go bad and she accidentally falls into the same machine with Zoe, and now they are both trapped in a simulation together and experiencing each other's stories. Now they both have to work together to escape the simulation and stop Mr. Raider from stealing their ideas. But what makes this story so interesting is the connection between Mr. Raider stealing the ideas of writers and AI stealing work from others in the real world, which is a very hot topic in the world today. So I believe this is a great message to send out to the world that stealing creativity from others, whether it's due to corporate greed or for the purpose of exploitation, is a very awful thing to do, and things never go well when you try to do something like that. But I really love the two protagonists that were introduced in this story, Mio and Zoe. Two strangers with entirely different backgrounds, motivations, and personalities being thrown into a simulation together. Mio is reserved and cynical, from the city, and loves sci-fi, while Zoe is from the countryside, openly optimistic, and loves fantasy. Early on, they have their disagreements and differences about things like why Mio doesn't like stories about fantasy and believes the countryside is extremely boring, while Zoe doesn't understand how someone could enjoy sci-fi and why someone would want to live in a city, but they gradually learn to get along and coexist in each other's stories. I also thought Mr. Raider was a great antagonist for the story because he played his role perfectly by constantly trying to manipulate and control Mio and Zoe by any means necessary. There's also a bunch of fun dialogue, interactions, and a lot of puns throughout the game, and I like that you can learn a lot of minor facts about both protagonists through their conversations. For example, I learned that Zoe loves to go dancing for fun, while Mia used to practice martial arts. Learning about these minor details through their conversations adds more depth to both protagonists and helps to expand their character identity. I also thought the voice acting for this game was amazing, and the delivery consistently sounded great from every single character in the game, which helped me stay engaged during the story.
Hurry before it explodes! Explode! Just fix it!
Arise, my critters, feast upon their foolishness.
Do you hear me? I will find a way to stop you, goddammit!
While this is a great story filled with a bunch of fun and lighthearted moments, at certain points, it gets very emotional. Mio and Zoe's stories reflect the internal conflicts and trauma that they are both individually going through in the real world, but they both find a way to help each other open up and confront the root of their issues. I felt a strong connection to this narrative because it provides a thoughtful message that you don't have to experience hardships alone. It's not always a great idea to bottle up your emotions and try to deal with things yourself. At some point, everybody has to deal with emotional hardships in their life, but it always helps to communicate what you're going through, whether it's talking to a friend, a family member, but in this case, even a complete stranger. The art design and visuals for Split Fiction feels very thoughtful and calculated, to the lighting, to the colors, to the reflections, to the different camera perspectives. The perspectives in this game felt mind-blowing because at one moment everything is in full 3D, the next moment the game turns into a side-scroller, and then the next thing you know the game shifts into a top-down angle. The game even transitions from having a split screen to a share screen seamlessly, and it's honestly kinda crazy how this game has no limits when it comes to perspectives. The sci-fi and fantasy environments look absolutely spectacular because they never limited themselves on environments. For sci-fi, they could throw you into a construction site, a cybernetic city, or in the middle of a space mission. And for fantasy, they could throw you into a forest, a magical market, or even a palace. Nothing felt out of place, and they effectively used lighting, colors, and reflections to set the tone of any situation in the game. There's even some moments where you and your friend can sit down on the bench and truly appreciate the scenery. They do a fantastic job to make every single level feel alive and purposeful. I like how almost everything in the game is constantly moving and there's almost never a still environment. I can confidently say that not a single world in this game felt boring, and everything felt extremely active. I even appreciated the simple environments like the laboratory in the real world because I thought everything was designed really well. Even though I love the art direction, I kinda wish they pushed the boundaries for the fantasy levels a tiny bit more. There was one level I really enjoyed where everything was drawn in a storybook art style, and I really wish they explored a little bit more with the different art styles for fantasy. Also, the sound design was magic to my ears, and it truly elevated the world to constantly feel alive. For example, in the science fiction levels, you will constantly hear lasers, planes flying by, explosions, or footsteps on the metal floor. And in fantasy levels, you can hear the rustling of leaves, water streams, and the sound of different creatures around us. I know my words aren't good enough to demonstrate how good the sound effects really are, so please take a listen for yourself.
Bloody hell! Now that's a proper ion cannon!
The soundtrack felt very subtle, but it does a great job to fit whatever is going on in the story. I feel like I mostly love the soundtrack during the fantasy levels, and I mostly love the sound effects during the sci-fi levels. And let me tell you, the gameplay absolutely blew my mind, and it's the highlight of Split Fiction. I was playing Zoe and my friend Chris was playing Mio, and each story is always introducing new mechanics in a way that I never imagined. It's constantly providing new ways to play the game, and every single story level was always filled with a bunch of creativity. There is so much variety when it comes to the level design of Split Fiction, and it takes inspiration from so many video game genres ranging from platformers, shooting games, racing games, puzzle games, and so much more. And overcoming these levels require a lot of teamwork and coordination from both players, which really adds to the fun of the game. During each story level, both Mio and Zoe will get introduced to new abilities and gimmicks that keep evolving the further you get into a story. For example, one moment you could be controlling regular sized plant life, and then the next thing you know, you could be controlling the whole entire environment. And yes, the shift of gameplay is that fucking crazy. After gaining a new ability, the simulation will provide Mio and Zoe with cool new costumes to fit in with the story. There was only one costume I didn't like, and it was the one that kinda looked like a bootleg Mega Man costume, but otherwise every single other costume looked really clean. The movement in this game felt very smooth, and is filled with a bunch of platforming sections that require you to dodge obstacles. You can do that by jumping, dashing, climbing, sliding, wall running, and using your grappling hook, and sometimes you would have to mix in the new abilities you gain from that level as well. And the game gives exploration purpose by making almost everything in the world interactable, which can lead to a lot of funny moments between friends. For example, we went down a water slide, had a snowball fight, hopped on a swing together, and many more things for you to find. There's also a bunch of fun Easter eggs and references to different sources of media that we recognize from multiple video games, movies, books, shows, and so much more. Story levels are very action-packed, and there's a lot of fun combat sections where you can beat up enemies with your abilities. There's also a lot of boss battles, and every single one is extremely creative and fun while making sure that both players are working together as a team to take them down. They are always bringing something new to the table by constantly switching up the gameplay and introducing cool ideas that I never expected. There's also the risk of dying both in and outside of combat. When you die outside of combat, it throws you back into the action relatively quickly. But when you die during combat, you gotta button mash to respawn as fast as you can, while your friend is trying their absolute best to stay alive. But if you both end up dying, You both gotta start over at the nearest checkpoint, but thankfully this game is very generous with checkpoints. But when you die, sometimes the game would respawn you in awkward places which can lead you to die again. And while this could be annoying to some people, most of the time I thought it was pretty funny. But one thing I'm really happy about is dialogue doesn't get interrupted when you die, so it will be very difficult to miss out on any interactions, which is a thoughtful feature that I really appreciate. They also didn't add annoying features to the game like player collision, which I'm very thankful for because we could truly appreciate every aspect of this game without accidental interference. But that doesn't mean you can't fuck with your friends for fun, because you can still kill your friends with your abilities. There was a handful of times where me and Chris would kill each other both accidentally and on purpose.
Oh shit!
Chris! Oh, I'm trying to fucking gamble! Yeah, die! Die! Oh shit! And sometimes you will find portals that will lead into side stories, which are stories written by Mia and Zoe that are usually unfinished ideas, something they wrote when they were kids, or just random inspiration from their life. And side story levels are very fun, and probably my favorite levels out of the whole entire game, because Mia and Zoe would have the craziest ideas that are either extremely funny or extremely cool. There's a few side stories in each story level, and they are pretty hard to miss because Mia and Zoe pretty much always announce when there's one close by. As easy as it is to find a side story, me and Chris unfortunately missed one by accident, but we quickly figured out that we can always go back to something we missed through chapter select. We were really relieved when we found this feature, and we always use it to keep track and see if we missed out on any side stories. But when we finally finish a story level, a glitch would appear so we can hop into the next story level, and we will go back and forth between science fiction and fantasy levels. Also, in terms of difficulty, I don't think the game is all that hard. It really depends on how well you can coordinate and work together with your partner. I would say the longest me and Chris got stuck in this section would be around 3 to 5 minutes max, but 9 times out of 10 that was just one of us being stupid or something. And I'm not gonna go into detail or show anything, but I just gotta say the final level and final boss gotta be some of the coolest and trippiest shit I have ever seen in my damn life. And I promise I am not exaggerating, and I promise I am not lying. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. But I really enjoyed my time playing Split Fiction because I believe the pacing of the story and the gameplay was done really well, and is balanced in the way that kept me invested through the entire game. It took us about 13 hours to complete all of the stories and finally beat Split Fiction, but I'm not gonna lie, we may have missed a few minor interactions along the way. But on the bright side, this game has a lot of replay value with the inclusion of chapter select and the option to switch between characters, so you can always go back to your favorite levels in order to have a different experience. And one thing I can confidently say, there has not been a single second where I was either bored or felt like my time has been wasted by the story or the gameplay. The story never felt like it dragged on, and it kept me invested due to its relatable themes and strong character development of both protagonists, and I just believe the story is well made from start to finish. But Split Fiction is truly a video game as video game. The game is always thinking outside the box and finding creative ways to change the formula while being supported by amazing visuals and great sound design. And I always had fun playing through all of the levels because they were constantly exploring new ideas and they never overstayed its welcome. Split Fiction has to be one of my all-time favorite games of 2025, and I highly recommend anyone to find a friend, a family member, or whoever to play this game and truly experience how amazing this game really is. And just like It Takes Two, I strongly believe Split Fiction will be another Game of the Year contender because once again, Hazelight has raised the bar when it comes to creating memorable co-op experiences, and they created a game that is packed full of fun while also being great for two friends to sit down and enjoy. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching and reaching this far into this video, and if you have your own personal thoughts about Split Fiction, please be sure to share them in the comments down below. But anyways, I'm out of here, and I'll see y'all in another video.